Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. This one is going to be of particular interest to trainers, coaches, and athletes, but in the bigger picture, it's relevant for everyone who wants to stay healthy, strong, or powerful. Or maybe you're a parent of an athlete who wants to learn a little more about how to help your athlete get faster and more explosive. I mean, after all, that's the goal, right? Every athlete should want to get more powerful and more explosive. And I would argue that even longer duration athletes, endurance athletes, I guess, you still need to train for power so that you can not only get faster and more efficient during your event, but so that you can have a great finish to your race. So this is all going to be relevant. So I guess the question is, what is the best way to train for power and explosiveness? I think if you have studied this or have been in this industry long enough, you know there are so many different ways to train, and no way is truly the definitive only way to train. But the topic today, while it might not be the only way to train, it will help you get closer to your goals. And we are going to talk about contrast training. So what is contrast training? Have you heard of it? Have you used it? Contrast training was popularized or credited to Verkhoshansky in the 1970s, and it's a combination of strength training and plyometric or power-based training. It's designed to improve athletic qualities, of course, specifically in sprinting and jumping. So in that sense, you could label it as a form of hybrid training, combining strength exercise followed by power-based or high-velocity movement. I'll get into some specifics in a few minutes, but the movements should mimic the same biomechanical pattern. Now, you might already do this in your training and just not recognize it as contrast training, but in order to fully explain contrast training, we have to recognize the physiological basis of it, and that is post-activation potentiation. Post-activation potentiation refers to the enhancement of muscular performance following maximal or near maximal muscular contractions. The theory behind this is by inducing post-activation potentiation through heavy resistance training, we can increase muscle force capabilities in subsequent high-velocity movements. Now, I've heard this described in simple terms like maybe you're lifting a bucket off the floor and you think that bucket is full and you're expecting something really heavy, but there's nothing in it. You're going to feel really powerful and it's probably going to go up pretty fast. Now, Greg Hoff mentions in his book, Scientific Foundations and Practical Applications of Periodization, that the most noted performance effect of a warm-up is related to post-activation performance enhancement, or PAPE. He explains that in post-activation potentiation, the main mechanisms underpinning the response have been related to myosin regulatory light chain phosphorylation, or an elevation in calcium in the cytosol. The response is said to be more prevalent in stronger athletes, and he referenced a meta-analysis that provided strong evidence that stronger, more experienced individuals will see a better response. Now, one example that Hoff gives, and I encourage you to check out his book because it goes into excellent detail, but he recommended a combination like 3 reps of a quarter back squat at about 85% of your 1 rep max, followed by 5 minutes of rest, and then 3 box jumps. Now, if you are proficient in Olympic lifts, you could do 3 reps of like a power clean at 80% of your 1 rep max, followed by a 3 to 5 minute rest or recovery, and then 5 hurdle hops after that. Now, one study that I found looked into the effect of sprinting following a heavy resistance training set among basketball players aged 18 and older. So after each heavy set, the basketball players performed a 30-meter sprint, and what they found is that acceleration and maximal velocity tests improved by 0.2 and 0.3 seconds. Now, there are variables to consider, and just like any other type of training, not everyone is going to get the exact same results. For example, a meta-analysis published in 2013 in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found results from 32 studies on both trained individuals and untrained individuals. It found that the athletically trained participants saw significantly better responses to post-activation potentiation. And this goes back to what Hoff mentioned, that stronger, more experienced people are likely to see better results. Now, we also have to look at muscle fiber type, and this is where we're talking about, type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers compared to type 1 muscle fibers. Now, if you aren't familiar, think of type 2 as like a fast, explosive sprinter, and type 1 would be more closely related to like an endurance athlete. Now, individuals who have a higher proportion of type 2 or fast twitch muscle fibers are more likely to respond to post-activation potentiation as compared to type 1 or slow twitch muscle fibers. Now, just like any training style or approach, the amount of weight you lift makes a difference. Eddie Hall, for example, isn't going to get much out of a 30-pound dumbbell row. So everything is relative, and if you want to maximize your benefit, you have to load your exercises according to your strength and experience levels. Most research points to increases in strength and power by using loads between 60 and 84% of your 1 rep max. But a 2012 study published in the International Journal of Sports Physiology and Performance found that athletes who use between 80 and 98% of their 1 rep max saw better results in lower body power compared to athletes who trained using 55 to 70% of 1 rep max. Now, that might sound obvious that if you're able to safely lift heavier weight, especially with this type of training, you're going to be stronger and you're probably a more experienced lifter, so you're probably going to see better results. Now, as far as rest periods between sets, the evidence is also varied. Anyone who reads research and has been in this industry probably understands that by now, but the same meta-analysis from 2013 that I mentioned earlier reported that ideal rest times were between 7 and 10 minutes, but others have suggested that 3 minutes might be adequate. Now, this is another example of finding what works for you. Are you still fatigued after resting for 3 minutes? In that case, maybe you're closer to 7 minutes. Like any well-designed program, there are no cookie cutter answers. So you kind of have to find what works for you in that regard. Now, the good news is that evidence has shown that if you're recovering from using higher intensities, fatigue is going to go away much faster than post-activation potentiation. So what that means is, in other words, if you take a rest break in that upper range that I mentioned, you are still going to see benefits. Okay, so now the fun part. What exercises should you pair up if you want to implement this into your training plan? If you're working lower body and squat is your heavy lift, you might pair up a barbell squat or a Bulgarian split squat with a similar movement pattern. So if you're doing a front squat, for example, you might pair that up with box jumps or a vertical jump. If you're doing a Bulgarian split squat, you might pair that up with a more explosive split squat jump, I should say. I've done this where I have an athlete grab 2 dumbbells. They're doing a 2 dumbbell Bulgarian split squat. After 3 reps of that, they'll drop the weights and do 3 explosive split squat jumps in that same position with their foot elevated. Now, if you're working upper body, maybe you're doing bench press, and I think the obvious one there that I would lean to would be a medicine ball chest pass, or you could do a reactive throw in that sense, but the idea there is going heavy with your bench press and then explosive with that medicine ball chest pass. On deadlift, everyone likes deadlift. You could do 3 to 5 heavy reps and follow it up with band resisted broad jumps. Anyone that trains with me knows that at some point they're going to get that deadlift and band resisted broad jump combo in their programming. some of my favorites are getting out of that frontal plane. So an example here is I might have an athlete do, say, a lateral sled pull, followed by a lateral bound. For upper body, I love the landmine post, love the landmine press. Shout out to David Ote and Joe Drake in their book, Complete Guide to Landmine Training. I like this one especially for throwers in track and field, and for baseball and softball players. So they'll do an explosive, a heavier rotational landmine press, followed by a rotational medicine ball chest pass, or a shot put throw. So the point here is that you can be creative with it, and you should be creative with it. There are a lot of combinations that you can use to implement contrast training into your periodization. Just make sure that you don't go too crazy with the reps and sets. Remember, these are intended to be heavy lifts followed by explosive movements, so you don't need a ton of reps to see results. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't a new type of training, and let's be honest, there are very few things that anyone can consider brand new. We just tend to modify existing types of training when new research is available so that we can keep advancing. So it isn't new, but it is effective. I would say take a look at scientific foundations and practical applications of periodization, like I mentioned before, by Dr. Greg Hoff, and look into his research. He has done a ton with this, and I know you'll learn so much more from him than I was able to explain in this short episode here. Dr. Hoff and I did an episode together a while back that you might remember about cluster sets, where he talked about the same topic and touched on this a little bit, and that one is available on the Human Kinetics YouTube channel and on our podcast platforms. If you want to listen to the audio only version, that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and the Human Kinetics website. So I would also encourage you to continue digging into research. I know not everyone likes research. Not everyone likes to read research, at least. I get it. I'll admit there was a time when I didn't enjoy it, but now I love reading what other people have researched and discovered on topics I'm interested in. It's one of the ways that I continue learning. I guess I would also recommend the NSCA's resources, specifically the Essentials of Strength Training and Conditioning. You'll find a lot more on contrast training there. So again, this was a brief one. Thanks again for joining me for this episode. As always, if you have topics you want to hear more about, please let me know. We want to share the most relevant information with you so that you can continue to learn as well. So again, thank you for listening. Thanks for your continued support, and I will see you next time.